comments that I had. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cynthia and Liz to take it away from here. And what's the magic?
All right, good evening. I'm Liz Holdsworth. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because it would not be Georgia Tech without a PowerPoint presentation, and that's what we're going to do. So, my colleague Cynthia Kutka is with me this evening, and she's going to do more talking on the back end. So you're going to hear from me first, and then you're going to hear from her. We're going to go over 4 databases, but there's actually a lot more that you can use. Really quickly, our goal for you tonight is to come away with at least one article related to your problem, preferably more. We want this to be a practical, hands-on working session. We hope that you can implement at least one method for quality control, and I'll get into what I mean by that in just a moment. Troubleshoot some common barriers to access. So we're using some pretty complex systems, and from the sound of things, there might be people coming from other institutions in Georgia Tech, so we can talk a little bit more about that. And then, most importantly, for you to ask for help when you need help. Both Cynthia and I are very willing and happy to work with students in groups one-on-one. I worked with students on a project related to this class last year, and it was a lot of fun for me. So we'll be sharing our contact information as well. So in addition to those kind of practical takeaways from this class, we've got kind of 4 sections that we're really going to kind of tease out. You all have specific information needs that you're going to need to fulfill for your work. And Cynthia and I have specific information expertise. So the first thing that I want to spend a little bit of time, but not too much time talking about, is understanding your point of view. So something that is endemic to libraries is we have a difficult time matching our information systems to people's needs. So for example, most students, when they come and ask me a question, don't say, I need information on biomedical engineering. They say, I need information on this particular kind of surgical robotic and its specifications and its uses and its development. So what I have to do as a biomedical engineering librarian is match the databases and resources that I know are relevant to that particular question, right? So part of your work is to think about the questions that you have and then try to match it to a bigger subject area. I would also point out, and this is what makes research really interesting and rewarding for me, is what are different perspectives on that problem. So for example, you can look for information on, say, that surgical robot in a business-oriented database and get information about a company that manufactures it. You could get information about whether a newer version is going to come to market. If you put it in a health sciences database, you might get information about what are the outcomes of using that particular kind of robot. So think about your perspective. What kind of broader concept am I going to try to perceive my problem from? And then think about what are perhaps related concepts or issues to your problem. So for example, This summer, I was working on the back end of respirator research because of the obvious need for respirators. And in addition to finding design schematics, I also had to learn more about um, health issues that are associated with respirator use. So there are certain conditions that you can develop by virtue of being on a respirator. Those are both important things to know, and a related concept that I had to kind of flesh out. And then again, and as you do more research, you will be able to answer these questions better, are potential additional perspectives on a problem. So we're thinking about the respirator, we have the design schematics, we have the potential health issues that can be associated from using respirators. But then also you might need to consider nursing and the people who are going to be putting all of this to work and actually going to be using that equipment. So this is a big, complex problem, and because I'm a librarian, I love big, complex problems. So why don't you guys take maybe a minute and think about what related concepts or issues might be connected to the problem that you're trying to discover the scope of. Perhaps what additional perspectives you might need. And maybe think a little bit about what view you're bringing to this problem. Do you see this as a policy problem, or maybe is this a something that could be really fixed by a certain kind of product problem? And maybe take a minute to think about that, and then you can unmute your mic, or Dory can unmute your mic, or you could put it in the chat, and you can tell me maybe some of these answers to some of these questions. So think on these questions and then report back to me. I can't see your faces, so if you're feeling shy, I won't know who said what.
And yeah, I think using both the chat and I think people have the ability to unmute themselves. So either works. And I know for people who are in class, this is something that you've already thought about. So looking forward to lots of good participation.
Hey, Cynthia, is there anything in the chat?
Nope. I guess they're being shy.
Shy? That's all right, because I will needle you guys later when you are in breakout rooms. So if you don't feel comfortable saying this now, I will pry it out of you in just a few minutes. Okay, so we had this kind of big intellectual problem, right? Trying to explore and scope and understand this thing that we're trying to grapple with, right? So you need to take this problem that you need to explore via research and then map it to the available resources, right? Which is part of what the bulk of the conversation we're doing tonight is going to be about. So we have data and government sources. The most obvious example would be something like census data or employment data. The kind of data that you really need a federal government or a state government to gather. I can't think of a university with enough money and manpower to do what the census does. So you have that. You have academic sources, which perform a different role. So academic sources are not going to have that incredible breadth, right? But what they're going to be is in-depth. So you'll take a really sharp, targeted view on a particular topic. And then it's also going to be peer-reviewed, which means before it was published, experts in the field reviewed it, commented on it, and improved it through multiple rounds of editing. And then that research is good to go, and then part of the academic conversation, right? The conversation of scholars. The other piece are news and trade publications. We probably won't spend as much time on trade publications, but part of the issue with academic sources is an article that was published in 2020 or 2021 is going to be based on research that was conducted maybe in 2018, 2019. So COVID, research excluded, of course, most academic research is a couple years behind the current date. News and trade publications are going to have much more up-to-date information, so you can look at a study from 5 years ago, look at the government data, and look at how that topic has been covered in news sources, and then draw a new conclusion or confirm an idea that you've had about that particular topic, pulling from all three to make a reasonable assumption or a proposal. So before I start talking about specific databases, we want to be able to get you to them. The easiest way, and you guys can do this while I'm talking, is Google Georgia Tech Library. When you do that, the databases A through Z list will be in the top search results. I think like the second one under the Georgia Tech Library heading. If you go to that link, you'll be taken to our master list of databases. We support 430 databases at Georgia Tech because the research interests of our faculty, staff, and students are incredibly broad. Using this list, you can go to databases that you know, or you can browse by database subject and type. So this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, is matching your particular research interest to a broader topic. But luckily for you, you have two librarians here with you who have in-depth knowledge of a lot of these databases, and we can kind of steer you to the ones that are going to be the most appropriate for trying to gather information about your project. So tonight, we're going to cover 4, and I'm going to cover the first 2, which is Social Explorer and Academic Search Complete, and then Cynthia is going to cover ERIC and Factiva. Included on this slide, and you guys will get access to the slides, are suggested databases to kind of cover the bases. We looked at your problems and the organizations that you'll be working with and tried to match where we think your research is most likely going to be to a particular resource. So I'll start off with looking at data visualization from the census, and then I'll give you kind of a very broad but helpful scholarly database. Cynthia will work with a specific education database and then take you into Factiva, which is this powerhouse of current events and industry information. And you'll get time to play with all of them and get help from us. So we're going to get into the practical part of this workshop right away. I'm going to show you Social Explorer. So I'm going to start from the very beginning. You can see our database link, the second one. It's extremely popular. Oh, and it looks like we're up to 464 databases, so branching out. Again, you can search by general topic, types. So if you're interested in encyclopedias specifically, or conference proceedings specifically, you could do that. I'm going to select S for Social Explorer and scroll on down. I apologize for the excess in scrolling. So I'm being prompted for my username and password. I'll mention this again a little bit later on, but BlueJeans doesn't work very well with the VPN offered by Georgia Tech, and I usually like to engage the VPN if I'm working from home. It just makes accessing our databases and articles a little bit easier. But here's Social Explorer. It's a wonderful tool. It helps you map different kinds of data. It has mostly US data, but it has some international data. The 2020 census is not included yet. There's been some delays in uploading it. Hopefully it'll be properly counted and pulled into Social Explorer soon. But if you just bear in mind that some of the census data from here is going to be from 2010, and that's just the best that they have access to right now. You can see it's organized by crime data, business patterns perhaps, environmental summaries, population estimates, many different kinds of things, health data. So when I was playing around with this afternoon, because I always like to try to practice before I teach, I was interested in health data. So just going to go ahead and explore it. You can change the data source at any time. And here we have a map of the rate of adults with diabetes. You can see that the darker counties here indicate that there is a higher percentage of the population that has that diagnosis. You can see it's concentrated, interestingly, in certain areas, some that are kind of predictable and some that are unexpected from a public health standpoint, and then one random county in South Dakota that didn't send any data. Okay. If I wanted to change this data, I'd click Change Data. It's a really simple tool to use. And here, I see all of my options. So they have complete data for many different topics, and then subtopics from underneath. So I'm going to stick with health for now. And instead of diabetes, I'm going to choose drinking adults. So here, we see a slightly different view. We can see the county view of the number of adults who indicate that they drink alcohol. Interestingly, it is pretty dark in the Midwest and up in the West. Very light in Tennessee, Oklahoma, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Utah. Does anybody want to venture a guess why Utah might be lighter than Wisconsin?
The religion in Utah.
That's right. Many people in Utah are followers or a part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which has a pretty strict prohibition against drinking alcohol. And in fact, a lot of researchers like to use Utah as almost like a control for alcohol consumption to compare against populations that tend to drink more. So you can see all kinds of interesting information, right? So something I'm going to do is add some complexity. Just, because I like things that are complicated. I'm going to that. I'm going to do a comparison because I want to see two different kinds of data side by side. So on the left, I have adults who drink, and I want to compare that against the map that we looked at earlier, which was adults with a diagnosis of diabetes, because I know that diabetes and alcoholism can sometimes be related, right? So instead of drinking adults, I'm going to go with diabetics and have a look. And when I ran this earlier, I was really disappointed because what I was hoping to see, I mean, as much as anybody can hope to see negative health outcomes, was that the diabetes map and the drinking adults map might look very similar, right? You can see how concentrated diabetes is here, but it's not especially connected. Perhaps in some places in North Dakota, but doesn't seem to be a strong connection here. And I wanted to show you this because as much as I really enjoy showing you success, and it makes me feel really clever, I want to show you that sometimes it doesn't work out. So you can make your map of drinking adults, make your map of another health outcome, and sometimes there just isn't that kind of strong statistical connection that you're hoping to see. But you can always change that data and see where there might be an overlap. We could change it from health data to data on income or employment or wealth and see if there's any kind of connection. So it's purely up to you, but it's an excellent way to get a view, perhaps on a population, and you can see much more granularly than the county level, depending on what you want to see. And then compare it against maybe another effect that you're trying to explore. Okay. So I'm going to turn the comparison off. You can, again, change the data. Certain kinds of data are not available in certain kinds of years. So we go to 2020, you can see that there isn't as much data. Of course, there's COVID data, which was not available in 2018, obviously. But you could see perhaps a map of Black Lives Matter protests or different kinds of income. Social Explorer combines data from the census and then various community surveys that are actually put out by the federal government, I think every 3 to 5 years. So in addition to the massive census that's done every decade, there's a series of community surveys that are done like every 3 to 5 years as well. So that was Social Explorer, found under S in the A through Z databases list on the Georgia Tech Library website. We go back to that dashboard. You can see that there are a whole bunch of other things that you might explore, or you could just start from a different vantage point altogether by using these different data sources. And what I'm going to suggest is that we break up into our breakout groups, and you can experiment and play around with Social Explorer and see if you can get kind of a high-level data view of the problem that you're mapping. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And yeah, I'm ready to go in breakout rooms when you all are.
Liz, is there any kind of specific outcome that you want to put out there for the teams or for the groups to strive for, or just to explore issue areas and maybe come back with some takeaways?
I would like to see if you guys could find, if you could make a map and maybe able to share the map with the group that is directly connected to your problem. So if you know that unemployment is a major issue, I want you to show me that unemployment is clustered around this particular group of folks that you're looking at.
Yeah. All right, so just to recap again, you'll go to your breakout rooms, and if you have problem even starting, one of you feel free to pop back to the main room to let us know. Otherwise, we'll be circling around and just checking in to see how your exploration of the Social Explorer is going. And then we will bring you back. We'll start with 10 minutes and see, the goal is to see how far you can get in 10 minutes, and then we'll bring you back after that. Welcome everybody back. If there were teams that, I know, Liz, you just got to join that one group and you didn't have time to really help them, but in the next rotation, we'll just have you go back to that team and help them with this part too, while we wanted to make sure that we have time for everything
absolutely.
else. So sorry about that abrupt.
Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, Hiba and team, you'll have an opportunity in the next round. Yeah. Okay. Well, Liz, I'll hand it back to you. So.
All right. If anybody wants to, in like 2 minutes, share their maps if you're really proud of your map or proud of Maply Insights, now is your time to shine. If not, we can move on to the next database.
All right. So if anybody's up for it, just speak up now. Otherwise, we're going to move on. If any of the teams found something very cool that they want to show up, I'll give you 5 seconds to speak up.
For Life School, we had some interesting insights for our project.
Right. If you want to tell us in 1 minute what that was, Brady.
Sure. So our project is focused on education, and the Life School is kind of rewriting a path for high school education. And so we were really interested in what education in that area looked like. And so we found some maps of basically the dropout rate, or the amount of people not enrolled in school. And looking at the area where the Life School is, it has some of the highest unenrollment rates in that area, in like Atlanta and in the area. So that was something that was really interesting finding for us moving forward.
Very cool. Thank you. That's, I think, Liz would agree that that's a great use of the map, and thanks for summarizing that for us, Brady.
Thank you so much for sharing. All right. I'm going to do database number 2. Back to this extremely orange map we are going to close out of. Okay. So right now I am back on the library website on the database list. I'm going to go to a different database, and this is listed on the slides that you will get later, called Academic Search Complete. Now, this database isn't as specifically tightly focused on a particular subject, but it is pretty good. And for me, one of the most important things about it is that the search interface is used by many, many, many databases that we supply. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that all of the bonus databases that that we've suggested are going to use the same kind of interface. So if you know how to use Academic Search Complete, you'll have an idea of how to use the others. So we're going to hop right in. We're going to get into the academic side, right? So we looked at government and data. Now we're going to look at academic research, peer-reviewed research. I myself, my strong preference when I'm starting out in a topic is to be a little broad and a little bit general until I have a good grasp of the kind of information that I really specifically need to seek. So I was inspired earlier today. I was looking at some of the groups. So I want to search for, very simply, foster children and employment and see what kind of research I get for that topic. I'm very interested in what happens to foster children, how they get jobs after they leave foster system. So here we have 141 articles, which is a lot, fully admit. Some that are published pretty recently. It's all good. What I'm going to do right now is make this a little bit more manageable by selecting this option on the left for peer-reviewed journals, which means all of the journals that are going to be returned have that peer review process. I'm also going to make it a little bit easier on myself, and you can choose to do this or not, but I'm going to limit to the full text that's available in this database. So in other words, the PDF will just be sitting there ready for you to download it. And that makes it fewer results. If I wanted to, I could slide up this publication date. So maybe research that came out in 1993 is not the most current. So I could set it to a publication range of, say, the last 10 years or so. And if there was an interesting study mentioned, I could go back and get that. Also looking under subject here, I can, oh no, not subject, I apologize. Source term is I can look for how the database thinks about these topics. And if I kept finding articles from this one journal, I can limit it to this journal and then go and search the journal independently, which if we have time at the end, I'll show you how to do. Okay. For those of us who might have language restrictions, most of the content here is going to be in English. Some of it might be in Spanish or Japanese or Portuguese. So, scrolling down, there's a particular article that caught my eye earlier today, this one right here. So, to have a deeper look at this article, the title looks very relevant to something I'm interested in. I'm going to click on it. And I want you guys to do your critical thinking once again. And if you feel too shy to speak up, that's okay. You can put it in the chat. Just looking here, it's not a problem with the article. It is something I need to consider. It is on this page. And in fact, I can give you a hint. The information is within what my cursor is doing now. Something to give me just a little bit of pause. And I want to see if you can pick it out. So look at this information here and tell me what you think it is. It is challenging, I'm not gonna lie. If you figure it out, I'll give you a
Somebody
virtual
said
dollar.
that the article is over a decade old.
That's right. Absolutely. There's something also, I'm glad you zeroed in on that date. I wonder if that same person, I'm going to prompt you. If we're talking about employment, and I mentioned maybe, oh gosh, almost an hour ago, that academic research comes out even a couple of years before the publication date, how might the information covered in this paper be different in 2010 or 2011? What is it about that period of time that's so distinctive?
The housing market collapse had a big role on employment.
Absolutely right. If this research was conducted in 2007, then the Great Recession happened probably immediately after. And the effects of the Great Recession, would be still being felt in 2009, and probably, though I don't know this for a fact, disproportionately felt amongst foster care youth, compared to somebody like myself, who didn't go through the foster system. So, yes. It doesn't mean this research is terrible and bad and awful. It just means that you need to make sure that you have an up-to-date piece of information to go along with it. If this was something that you wanted to read, you'd scroll through the abstract and make sure. Scroll back up. Get the full text PDF, which you can then download and keep forever. It's yours. Just a pro tip, I did not figure this out until I was way too old. You don't have to read academic articles from beginning to end. You can actually break it out into smaller pieces. So I often like to read the introduction and then go right to the results or discussion at the end to get kind of an idea of what the article is about and where it's going, and then maybe go back and read it from beginning to end. So you're not having to slog through 20 pages. You can actually get an idea of what's going on and then decide whether you really want to invest the time. That's an academic cheat that I did not know until I was in my 30s. So, heading back, we're going to do the same thing all over again. Is I would like your groups to use Academic Search Complete to find a peer-reviewed scholarly article on your topic, and if you can, find the full text PDF, and see if you can even better use that document to supplement what you were seeing with the map. And I'm going to pop in with the LISC group and make sure that we sort out your map issues. So I am ready to do breakouts.
Breakouts, here we go.
See that we are all back, or most of us are back. Does anybody want to share an academic article that they found that was relevant to their topic, and bonus, whether it connects to the map that you made? If you're feeling extra.
Let me pick on a team if nobody is willing. Yeah. Here, Allison, do you want to share what your team found? Or anybody from Allison's team? All right, you have computer problems. Morgan?
Sure.
Like to
So
share?
I'm with Life School. Again, it's like non-traditional high school learning methods. So in my initial search, I think Brady found something if she wants to add to this, but my initial search, I was kind of searching terms like non-traditional and high school, and like creative formats and things like that. So I didn't really find any specific articles on first search, but there are definitely results that we can use. I just have to find them.
Okay.
Oh. You're becoming a model for what we're going to talk about at the end, which is persistence in the face of barriers.
Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting you should bring up education because Cynthia is about to take over and I'll be the slide maven if she needs me to be. She's going to talk to you all about the ERIC database, which is an education-specific database, and Factiva, which is that powerhouse database. So Cynthia, do you want to take over?
I certainly will.
All right, I will. Do you want me to share my screen or do you want to do it?
I'm fine. I'll share mine. I'm just going to show them databases. They don't even need to see me. So I'm going to turn myself off. All right. So I'm going to show you my trick for getting places. I don't talk about Georgia Tech. I just type GovTech library because everything is govtech.edu. And from there, I go to databases. And it's a horrible thing to say, but it's just faster to get to the databases this way than it is to do it from the library homepage. I know that's sad, but it's true. So I am going to pretend that I don't know the name of the database that I want to look at. So I'm going to use this because we've got 400 and some databases. You don't necessarily know the name of the database you want, or you may want to see if there's something different other than the ones that you know. So I'm going to go to education. And I can see the databases that cover education. The one I'm going to go to is ERIC. And you will see that ERIC has the same interface that Academic Source Complete has. So I will say that when we do the hands-on, if you want to go back and use Academic Source Complete in the hands-on instead of ERIC, if you don't have an ERIC-like topic, then you can do that. I do not like the big box. I go directly to advanced search, which allows me to narrow the search using AND, or to broaden the search using OR. You could do that in the one box too. It's just easier to see what you're doing here. And I'm putting high school in quotes so that I keep that phrase together. And then I'm going to add education model. And I'm putting an asterisk there so that I can get education models and education model. What this asterisk does is it truncates the word with whatever the letters are that are in front of it. It can substitute for more than just one letter. And then I'm going to put innovative. I could have also truncated that so that I could get innovation and so forth, but if I truncated it after the T, but I'm not going to. And I'm going to click search. And just so you know, just because you don't see the PDF does not mean you cannot find this article. It's just that this gold button will lead you to the full text of this article in another database. It's just not contained in ERIC, but doesn't mean we don't have access to it. One of the first things I'm going to do is change the date range. An innovative high school in 1971. I don't think we think it's very innovative right now. So I'm going to move this to 2015 and see if that's too far. And that takes me down to 13 hits. And I can see if this looks like a bunch of models because they all have copyright symbols next to them. But it looks like in most of these cases, the actual full text is not necessarily there. So I'm clicking the gold button to say find at Georgia Tech. And it will tell you, unfortunately, that this is in paper. Okay, I don't think you want that one. It's not that you can't get this if it's in paper. It's at the. It's just that you'll have to request it, and they'll make you a photocopy of it. I do not see any other way of getting it, so I'm going to go back. That was a bad example. One of the other things you want to do is you want to look at the way an article was described, because that gives you an idea of synonyms you can use. When you are really trying to find everything you can about a topic, remember that people may describe it differently than you do. So I, like instead of education models, school models, which is actually something different, but it may be the thing you're looking for. And I usually keep a Word document or a spreadsheet where I keep track of all of the ideas that I run across of synonyms that I can use when I search. So that is one search. I'm going to do a new search, starting from scratch. And once again, I'm going to use high school. And interactive now, just to point out here, if you want to look for the words in a specific place, you can. Like if I want to be sure that it's absolutely about high schools, I can say that I want to find it only in the title. And this is a way of narrowing the search. Or that I want to find it only in the abstract, which is that summary of the article. But most of the time, I just leave it at select a field, which means it looks for it everywhere in the summary of the article, in the abstract, in the subject headings, etc. And you'll recognize this interface from using Academic Source. There are 136. Let's see what happens when I cut the number of years. Still 91. So I might want to cut it down even to 2015. Close enough. Still a lot. So the idea of this interactive environment appears to be a rather new phenomenon in high schools, or at least people are writing about it more. So that is how you would search ERIC. I'm going to search for these same things in Factiva later, so that you can get an idea of how you would add to it. I am going to limit this one to peer-reviewed, like Liz was doing. And that only cut out 2. So most of these are peer-reviewed articles. here. And when I may have done that too fast. Let me do it again. I went to this full text from Eric. And that takes you to the full text. So you don't see the icon in Eric, which is how it's different from Academic Source Complete. But I can download it right here. Once again, be sure to look at the descriptors, look at the abstract, because it may give you synonyms that you want to try for a new search, a more precise search perhaps, or a broader search. And that was very fast. And I'm going to let you go ahead and do your hands-on, but remember, if you don't think Eric is suitable for your topic, then you can try Academic Source Complete, or you can try any database that say, for example, if you are, somebody asked about engineering databases, so that's why I'm going to show you this. So engineering databases seem to be why is this not working? Well, engineering seems to be separated into different kinds of engineering. So that's one of the ones where you should probably just ask me for I don't know why it's just stuck. It's stuck. So engineering should have worked, but for some reason my screen has frozen and it will not let me pick any of the letters. Now let's try it. I guess I had to reset it. That's the trick. You have to go back to all subjects again. It won't just let you pick another one, which is weird. Okay, so here are a number of engineering databases. If you wanted to try those instead, and I will pop in and answer questions for anyone who has them.
Thank you, Cynthia. Okay, so we'll do our third round of breakout rooms. And I guess the goal can be the same, to find an article that is related to your topic.
Yes, it's the same goal. I apologize. The same goal is to find something. That's why I was giving other options, because I could make everybody search Eric and come back with something specific, but I'd rather them find something that means something to them. So that's why but you can feel free to go back to Academic Source Complete, which is a great resource, or get crazy and try something else.
Sounds good. Yeah. All right, Joshua.
The list group heard the end of my answer.
Kind of.
I'll
We
check
kind of
with
heard
them.
it. Poor Lisk. They keep getting shortchanged.
All right.
Well, we'll ask them once everybody's back. I'll just finish. It was just a sentence.
Yeah, I think everybody's back, Cynthia, and
Okay.
we have 20 minutes left with a little bit of wiggle room.
List group, if you didn't hear the end, I was suggesting you try Business Source Complete, which has the same kind of search interface as Eric and Academic Source Complete. They yanked us all back to heaven. So
yes.
Anyway, I'm going to go and show you our last database. And of course, we're ending with the most complex database. 'So, You may need to get more assistance with it later, and that's okay. I'm going to go to Factiva. I have no idea how they've classified Factiva by subject. The advantage of Factiva is it is very current. You can find stuff that was published today. You can find it from sources from everything like the Wall Street Journal to press releases from companies, right? It covers a broad spectrum of information sources. So the downside of finding something really current is you have to use your critical skills in evaluating. So we usually like to recommend that you start broad, like we have been doing, and get a sound basis for defining your problem, as we're doing in the session. And then you can update it with information from Factiva. Factiva is not the easiest to search, but I love it because it has stuff that nothing else has. And you will notice that it has a different search interface. And that's because you can do some super precise searching in Factiva. But the more precise you can be, the more the more complicated it gets. So I'm going to do a search about high school and interactive teaching methods. And just to show you how this one works, I showed you earlier that I put phrases in quotes. In Factiva, if I put a quote sign, it automatically puts the closing quote and puts your blinking cursor in the middle. And then it provides your connectors. I'm going to say and. Now, I'm not putting this one in quotes. We're just trying to show you some techniques. Interactive teaching. If I could type faster, this would all go that much faster. And then you don't want to go, the value of Factiva is its currency. So we're going to say the last 5 years and not all of the years. I can also do things like change my region. So if I'm only interested in the United States, I go down, and it's very international. That's another one of the great things about Factiva is the total global coverage. But I can go here to United States. I can actually pick areas of the country like southern US. I can pick Georgia. I can go all the way down to picking Atlanta, right? But that may be a little too narrow. So I'm going with United States. It puts it here. If I want to get rid of it, I hit the little down arrow and I can remove it. But I'm going to search. And this is all topics. It's engineering, it's what did I do wrong? If I want to go back and change it, I hit the modify. Well, I don't know. When I practiced this earlier, I got more than 3 results, so I'm not really sure what I did wrong now. Take out the United States this time. Probably I spelled something wrong. I will try a new search. I decided to use interactive learning this time, which would be a synonym for interactive teaching method, and I get 656, which is a bit much. I'm going to go back and modify my search last 5 years. Let's go back to the regions again. United States. And it's still going to be too many, and I will tell you why. There are a whole bunch of articles that are about how interactive learning is taking place during COVID. If that's what you want to know about, that is good. But let's say you want to know about interactive learning in general that takes place during normal times, I can actually say not and remove all of the articles that are about interactive learning during the time of COVID. And that's still too much, but I could keep continuing to narrow it down. I can narrow it down to the subject of education, which is pretty obvious, but that'll knock some of them out, and it did. And I could choose sources, but I'm going to leave it at this just for the purposes of demonstration. And I want to show you how you browse Factiva. All you have to do is pick on a headline, and it will allow you to browse the article. It will show you where your keywords showed up, right? And it allows you to go through a number of articles very fast. Then if you see that there's one that you like, let's pretend I like this one. I actually am not paying much attention to what I just opened. And then here's another one that I decided I liked. I can go through and check the ones that I have browsed that look good, check the box, and then go up here to this button that says RTF and download all of the articles completely as a Word document. And I actually like to pick headline, article, and table of contents, because if you've picked a lot of articles, it will actually give you a navigable table of contents. I'm going to pick a different topic. And in this case, I'm going to put in, I'm just going to copy it and paste it in. And you're going to pretend that I typed it. Okay, so we're looking for affordable housing for recently released inmates, incarcerated persons. The reason that I have a parentheses and then incarcerate with a asterisk or inmate with an asterisk is this is how you can string together a number of synonyms to find something. And narrows a search, so it has to be both affordable housing and recently released. But then it can have incarcerated, whatever would start with that. And I could continue to add ors and make a whole string of synonyms. I just can't think of any other ones to add right now, but I can. And that's the reason you keep a list of synonyms when you're going through the abstracts. And I'm going to leave it with the United States, which is where it was from before, and the last 5 years. really not, these are not the results I was getting before. I must have something in here that's strange. So this is, for better or worse, the way you search Factiva is you need to understand how to do Boolean searching. There are also other modifiers that you could use so that you just pick things from lists. And that would be, I could pick sources. If I wanted to do a search about a company, and not have any keywords. And just go through here and pick things from the problem with picking subjects is it's a very limited list. So I might want to look up Qualcomm, but there's no way I can look up 5G, and there's no way I can look up Internet of Things. So I'm going to go back up here, IoT, or this is not anybody's problem statement. I'm just winging it. Okay. Every time you want to, I can, of course, narrow it by clicking the company. And this is a really clever thing. Let's say that I've done the last 5 years and I see that there's a spike right here that matches my search. I can actually click on that bar, which is somewhere, it looks like in 2017 maybe. And I can click on it and I can see what happened in 2017 that made it very active during that time period. So rather than, I think we're running out of time. I'm talking so fast, we've only got 8 minutes. So anybody who needs help, you will have our contact information. And I suggest for the 5 minutes that you have to go into.
I think, Cynthia.
Yes.
Cynthia, what we're gonna do, I think we're gonna forego the last breakout session in lieu of giving you and Liz a last round of maybe just sharing general wisdom and tips for students and community members who are present as part of the workshop of, what are your kind of best practices for how, in general about basic research, and then answering any questions that folks might have about any of these databases or anything else that might have come up for folks as they participated in today's workshop. So for participants, start putting those questions into the chat if you have, and then Liz and Cynthia, I'll give you the floor for the last 5 minutes to share anything that
I'll
maybe
go ahead
wasn't.
and share my screen, if that's all right. All right. So Cynthia, I think we can both speak to some of these, and we have spoken to a lot of it so far, is that particularly if you're a community user, corroborate evidence, by which I mean try to find multiple sources from different places that are disconnected from each other that kind of support, like you're gathering evidence and then it comes together and you're not just using a single source or a single kind of source. I kind of regret using this particular language, but I said privilege, genuine expertise. I think that might be a little problematic, so I can change that before I send these slides out. it is helpful, for example, in health sciences, that you check and make sure the authors of the articles that you're reading are folks who have degrees in health, the same way you might want to double check and make sure somebody has a degree in education if they're writing about education, which I think you can also balance with individual perspectives from perhaps affected groups because they are experts in their own experiences. But make sure you're giving those different expertise the proper weight when you're running your analysis. If you're a GT person, and this kind of came up, be sure to use a VPN to access library databases and journals and such, especially if you're off campus. Or using campus wireless sometimes. That makes access a lot more streamlined. And Cynthia mentioned something that, I didn't touch on as much, is keeping track of your progress. So like writing down or copy and pasting the work that you do, downloading and putting in a folder the articles that you find, so you can replicate that work later if you need to, or you can say, all right, I tried this and it didn't work. I'm going to try something else. I also want to point out, and we did this kind of unintentionally, you saw two very different searching styles. Both are fine. And you also saw like some lack of success, which is also fine. Part of doing research is being persistent and then asking for assistance when you need it. So we have our contact information here. That's the last of my piece. Cynthia, do you have things to add?
I was typing some stuff. The reason, of course, that I was doing more complex searches is because generally when I show people how to search, I start with a really broad database, but they weren't ones that would be applicable. So I like to start with a broad resource and broad search terms. It may just be one or two search words, and then work to the more specific. But then when you get to the more specific databases, in order to get what you truly want, you do have to do a bit more complex searching. But you should have gotten then, by the background research you did, more synonyms and keywords that you want to try. So it becomes progressively more precise and more granular as you go along. And then, so, start with broad, then go to very subject-specific databases like ERIC or an engineering database or a medical database, depending on what it is that you're doing, a food and nutrition database, which Agricola, for example, is agriculture, but it also covers nutrition and veterinary medicine for that matter. And then lastly, once I've got a really good understanding of what I'm looking at, I want to look at what's happened lately. And then I go to the current databases like Factiva and newspapers, just keeping in mind that unlike a peer-reviewed article and some of these other things, you need to use your critical skills. Don't take the word of something. You can actually search blogs, for example, on Factiva. You don't want to take that as fact. You usually want to back up anything that you find in the current resources with the same information found 2 and 3 other places.
Thank you.
But when you're doing problem definition, starting broad makes sense because you haven't narrowed your problem yet. So you need to start broad, and then as you start to define it, you do more complicated and precise searching.
Yes. That's a very good point. And thank both of you, Liz and Cynthia. This has been invaluable, and I know that students will be using these skills throughout the semester, and I'm really hoping that for our community partners and those from outside Georgia Tech that joined us today was valuable too. And I do want to recognize our limitations in thinking inclusively about this workshop series and opening it up to anyone for participation, that a lot of these databases and resources are restricted in their full access to Georgia Tech students, and that's right there, it's a social issue on in itself, as the inequality in access to information, if you will, and to data. So I have a lot to learn about how to make these workshops more inclusive, and maybe that's something that people who are very close to this information, like librarians themselves, can help me think through for the next time around. But hopefully for those participants that that joined us today from outside Georgia Tech, if and you have Liz's and Cynthia's, please feel free to reach out to me. Liz and Cynthia, I'll leave it up to you if that's an open invitation from your end too. But
I
yeah.
didn't realize we were going to have non-Georgia Tech people. Otherwise,
Yeah,
we might have included more. But I've got some lists of resources that are available to everyone. There's also public libraries. It's an access issue because it's a money issue. It doesn't always work that way.
Yeah, exactly.
In order
So
to be in our license agreement and to pay the license agreement prices, we do have to restrict it.
yeah, I know, and
But there's other
that's maybe
resources that are good ones, and I will send that list to you, Dory.
Thank you very much. So yes, so if anybody needs access to resources and you don't have it, please let us be part of helping you figure out how we might be able to help you to access those. And for those of you at Georgia Tech, just understand that it's just another privilege that you have, that you don't even have to think about how to access these resources. But on that note, I want to thank again to Cynthia and Liz for spending 2 packed hours with us. I mean, going over 4 databases is, my brain is fried. I'm sure everybody else is in a good way. But these are really the skills that you will use over and over throughout this semester, and throughout your, if you're new at Georgia Tech and you're just starting out, definitely throughout your years here. And you got this early on, and for those of you, nearing graduation, I trust that this is something that you will be able to use in your future careers too. So with that, I think we're just going to let everybody go. Class will follow up with your next assignment, which is going to be based on using these databases to find, your first set of resources around the issues that you're working on. And for everybody, class and participants, we hope you will be, for our non-class participants, we hope you'll be back for more of these workshop series, throughout every Monday that we have coming up. So thanks everyone for being, for participating, and thanks to our librarians for showing us where to start and how to do this very meaningful work that it's ahead of us. So with that, I will close, and then as they generously offered their contact information, if you're working on your assignment and you realized you just forgot maybe something that was covered, we're going to put up the slides and the recording too, but you have their invitation to reach out to them for additional help with database searching. So thanks for that offer.
1% of the databases, just to introduce them to the idea of the resources that are out there available to them. And they may have to, like Liz said, you have to match your question to the correct database, and you may need help with that. Lots of resources we didn't get to see.
Yes. And we will post, Joshua, if you can drop the Ideas to Serve competition page in the chat. That's where we will post the slides for those of you that are not in class. Everybody in class, you'll be able to access it on Canvas. So just follow, check this webpage tomorrow or maybe the day after, and the slides will be posted up there. And then we'll hope to see you back for some more workshops throughout the semester. All right, with that, thank you everyone. You're free to go. If there's anything from the chat that you want to save, go ahead and save it. And then we'll wish everyone a good evening. And thanks everyone. Liz and Cynthia, you see all the thank you messages in the chat. Really.
I think I'm not sure Liz is still here. Her cat was attacking her.
I see. Okay.
Did she send you the slides? Because she's the one.
Yes, she sent me the slides. Yeah. So
Good.
we'll be posting those for everyone.
Okay. I'll look for those other slides that help with not for fee information resources.
Okay. Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate that too.
Bye, everybody.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Unless you have any questions for me, feel free to drop off and go have dinner.
Hey, I just have one question.
Yeah.
What are like the expectations of our contact with our organization? Because for us at least, we haven't talked to them since like the pitches when we got like to like talk to them and like hear about them and question them. Should we be reaching out to them or? Okay.
Nope, we're not. Yeah, we told them that we wanted to give you guys some times to start looking at information before you meet with them. So this week we're gonna start making. Also, we wanted to see who in your contracts, in your team contracts, will be the main communicator. Who is in that role. So we will be making those introductions to one person on each team this week, and then really you will not have a meeting with them until March. The plan is for you guys to start collecting some information before you meet with them. So this week we'll make introductions, and then in a week or two you can start like setting up those first round of meetings.
Okay, gotcha. Because we were working through like a lot of this, and for our group at least, we were struggling a lot because none of us, like Hiba and Mohit and I, we don't really have much experience with loans and stuff. And like I feel like we need a better understanding of what exactly we're supposed to be doing to be able to make more progress in our research, because like our like understanding right now is so small that like to expand it, we still like need help getting there.
Yeah, that's good feedback, and that's something that I can help you guys to just send you some resources to start looking at. Like start with Kiva, the Kiva website, and look at their story and look at their why. When it comes to, that's a good resource for why access to lending is important, or look at anything around. Who am I thinking of? Whose work? Mohammed Yunus's work.
Gotcha. Okay, that should be really helpful as a start. I mean, I just know, like, I have surgery on Friday, so, like, going into that, I'm trying to, like, get ahead as much as I can so that I'm not, like, leaving my teammates to, like, do work without me.
And I understand that. Yeah. So you will be connected this week, and if you guys are struggling to even get started, then I'll let Patricia know that you might reach out sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, start with those resources. Look up. There are a lot of good TEDx talks out there on the issue, and just use the the information that you got today for researching the topic. But thanks for letting me know.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. And I think you're aware, but I won't be in class on Monday because of my
Yes,
surgery. Okay.
I
And I
know.
already spoke
I
to my
know,
group
Deanna.
mates about that.
Very good. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Good luck, Deanna.
Thank you.
All right. Joel, you had something? Or you just...
I had a question about the
Okay.
weekly project update. Is that, like, it was on a team contract? I don't know how relevant that is at this point, but is that something that will kind of develop naturally as we move on to the...
Yeah, not this week yet. I'll put that note in our Canvas follow-up. Yeah, thanks
Okay.
for bringing that to my attention. Yeah, I'll talk more to that with after the next assignment, but I'll mention it in the next announcement that I make.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
As usual,
Thanks,
you
Joel.
guys have a great week.
You too.